We are getting closer and closer to week one. Well, maybe a little bit. But that's when the Bears play the Vikings. We're going to talk about the Bears. We're going to talk about the Vikings. Which team has a brighter future today? Pete Bercich joins us in studio for the entire show. CHGO Bears starts right now. Welcome into the CHGO Bears Podcast. Happy Monday. It is June 16th. Hope everybody had a good weekend and a great Father's Day. Shout out to all the dads out there in the world. It is Spirit Week here at CHGO, actually across our entire All-City network and all of our markets. New initiative we're doing, which most importantly will raise money for a good cause with Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America, one of our big partners. And we are getting it started today with your favorite CHGO t-shirt, which is why I'm wearing one of our Hawk shirts here today. And with that, you get 30% off all of our merch today, most of our merch today, if you go to our store at allchgo.com. But more important than that, off the top of the show, I want to mention this. You may notice if you're watching live on YouTube right now or later on YouTube, you will see a donation button there, right there on the screen, and you can donate. Maybe, if you're a frequent super chatter, maybe instead of super chatting today, you want to send that money into a donation. You could do both. We would certainly appreciate that. But 100% of your donations this entire week across our All-City network will go towards Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America. And this is important. YouTube is covering all of the transaction fees, so it's not like there's some money going into YouTube. So we thank YouTube for that. Great cause. And we got some special things going on throughout the week. I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we get going here on the show. But Adam Hoge, not solo today, but without Mark Carman and without Greg Braggs. Carmen is actually on a special assignment, which we'll share with you the details of that soon, because it's a mystery to even us right now. And then Braggs is going to be on vacation all week. So joining me in studio today, our friend Pete Bercich. He's the radio analyst for the Minnesota Vikings. He is a Chicago guy, and he is certainly
back.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's good to be back. I got a chance to catch. I went to Providence. Got to see Providence play Brother Rice in a super sectional baseball game. A couple
Providence is a heck
last weekend.
Baseball.
So it's fun to connect with. Just go back and run into guys you haven't seen since maybe high school.
Yeah.
Right. I love being back here. Everything but the traffic.
Yeah,
it's absolutely fantastic.
Although, Minnesota can give you a run for your money traffic in the summertime with all the construction.
Yeah, we have
winter and construction.
We have two seasons, winter. Yeah, exactly. And the best, we can go into this for a while, but they'll just shut down a highway on a weekend. Literally, you take the route that you're always taking, and then they just close them down because they just don't have a lot of time to work on them. And it's a different bit. Nowhere near the scale that you guys have here. Obviously.
Yeah, no, it's a nightmare, to put it lightly. But we are here, and we battle the traffic for you every day to get in here. We are excited to talk about a bunch of things. Pete's obviously an expert on the Vikings, but he knows the Bears really, really well too, because you spend a lot of time still in this area. You grew up here.
And then with Ben Johnson coming in, I mean he's in the division, so. The way this whole thing's setting up, and obviously we have a lot of time to talk about it. Camp's really only a month away, and so kind of just what to expect as a Bears fan, or what we expect out of the team. How's this thing going to develop? How's Ben Johnson going to change things? I think you guys have already seen some of the changes. What's key, though, those sort of things, and there may be 3 playoff teams that make it out of this division again, but I don't think you're going to see it so top heavy with the wins. I think there's going to be a little bit more balance this year. overall.
Yeah, so since you were in here in April, we had the draft. The schedule came out. We learned the Bears and Vikings are going to play each other week 1 on Monday Night Football, which is exciting.
Yeah.
And the Bears, and specifically Caleb Williams, had a little bit of drama, too, with the book that involved the Minnesota Vikings. Because as our awesome listeners and viewers and most of the Bears fans kept yelling throughout that whole thing, none of this is new. This isn't new information. It's not a. But the one thing that was new was apparently his desire to play for Kevin O'Connell at one point in the pre-draft process and be a Viking. So I just kind of wanted to start there because there's so much crossover in that storyline with how the Vikings ended up with JJ McCarthy. Of course, the Bears ended up with Caleb Williams. They're going to play each other in week 1. I look at it all as entertainment, and that's really, really fun. But as you were consuming that story as it came out, and from your perspective of knowing Kevin O'Connell really well, just did any of that surprise you? What were you just thinking as you read about that?
I think the proof is in what we've seen, right? So Kirk Cousins, like him or hate him, and there's a lot of likers and haters in Minnesota with Cousins and just how far he can take. But as good as he was limited in a lot of ways. He still took this team to the playoffs, right? Took the Vikings to the playoffs 2 seasons ago, and then you have Cousins getting hurt. You have Josh Dobbs coming in. You've got this laundry list of kind of backup quarterbacks who come in, and then you go into a season with Darnold and JJ. JJ gets hurt. Darnold goes on to throw for over 4,000 yards, which is 35. I believe 35 touchdowns, over a 100 passer rating. Gets paid, goes to Seattle. Not every team. There are only a handful of people, I think, in this league that know really how to coach that position. And the Vikings are in a unique spot where you have a head coach who was a quarterback in the NFL, coached quarterbacks in the NFL, was an offense coordinator, now is a head coach that calls plays. So that means he's on the microphone, he's in the ear of the quarterback. If you are a college quarterback and you're looking, where's my career going to go? What's best for me? I do think that at the quarterback position, the Vikings offer a pretty compelling place to go. So it doesn't surprise me that a player coming out of the draft would say, "Yeah, I want to go." Because when you sit down in that interview during the combine and you speak to a defensive-minded head coach, it's going to be a little bit different, maybe an offense coordinator. But when you sit down with the head coach of a team and he's talking about your position, what you're going to do, what you're responsible for, it's a totally different feel. So for him to say that, we've been around this thing a long time, and you just don't always need to be that honest.
Yeah.
Right. But when you step back and go, if the guy had his choice to go somewhere, then as a defensive player coming out of the draft, you want to play for, Bill Belichick, or do you want to play for somebody who's got his first chance at being a defense coordinator?
Yeah.
It's so from that end of it, it's not surprising.
Right. Because and we've talked about this kind of endlessly on the show, so we don't have to get in the past of it too much. I actually want to spin this more towards what they have now with Ben Johnson. But yeah, if you picture like being in a combine interview with Kevin O'Connell and that Viking staff, versus Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron, and then with the knowledge that we now have of everything that played out last year, I have a feeling that was probably very different for Caleb Williams, those two experiences. But now you wonder, what would that all look like if it had been Ben Johnson and this new staff, which is what they have now. One of the things I wanted to ask you about with Kevin O'Connell, though, kind of comparing him to Ben Johnson a little bit, so we were out at all of the OTA minicamp practices, and the thing that really stood out to us immediately was not only his attention to detail, which I'm sure Kevin O'Connell probably has too. Most good offensive minds have that. Yep. But Ben Johnson coaches harder than I realized. Like, he was all over those guys. If you were not lined up properly, it was a re-huddle. Yeah. And he really, you could tell, was making a purposeful first impression to the players when they got out there that he was going to coach these guys hard. How is Kevin O'Connell in that respect? Is he a guy that quote unquote coaches hard?
I don't think he's not going to be. I think as dynamic as that is, right? He's not. You don't see him yelling a lot.
And don't get me wrong, Ben Johnson's not Ditka either,
right? But he does take the time. I've seen him do it many times, especially this time of year. And I talked to him just a couple weeks ago, and I asked him, "Do you love developmental camp time or do you hate it?" Because coaches you can kind of fall in either category, because a coach's job is to make his starters ready to play and to play to the best of their ability. And now you've got, if you're a linebacker coach, you've got normally 6 guys in the room, maybe 5, and now you have 12. So are you wasting your time, right? And in reality, that's kind of it. You judge by how well your starters play. So some guys may not like it as much. Other guys enjoy it because there's no pressure. It's simple. It's a little more basic football. And Kevin told me, he said, I love this time of year because you can kind of get back to the basics. And you'll see him during practice, stop practice, make everybody come over, and he'll go through. And I think he loves to explain the why, right? So you're not lined up properly. You should be outside of the numbers instead of inside of the numbers. And this is why, because we want you to widen this cornerback so we have a little bit more room for the tight end underneath it, et cetera. So he's very big on that. It's not like this is how you do it and that's it. It's explaining kind of the big picture. And but I think that attention to detail comes down to accountability. And I think that's the one key, I think, for Ben Johnson with the deal with Caleb Williams is to say, I'm in charge. This system works, right? Mm-hmm. You're being taught the right things. Either you're on board or you're not. And I don't mean to be blunt or brutal about that, but the pressure has to be on Caleb every single day. No more excuses, no more questioning, what about this and this offense, and hearing it from the fans or from the media. No more of that. You have to take this team to the next level. So a lot of that responsibility, all of it should be on him. And we're seeing the same thing now with JJ McCarthy and a younger quarterback. How quickly can he get to that point?
Yeah.
Right. How quickly can he get to where he can get on a teammate or elevate a teammate or try to elevate a teammate instead of the other, kind of the other way around. And I think that's really the key, and it's the key for both of these young quarterbacks.
This might sound like a silly question because obviously you'd prefer to not have a knee injury knock you out. But where I'm going with this is, who do you think benefited more last year? Caleb going through the adversity he did and actually playing the amount of football he did, or JJ McCarthy? He obviously, his adversity was different. It's an injury. But he got to sit back and watch what Sam Darnold and Kevin O'Connell did together. Right. And now he's got to go out there and execute that without the playing experience that Caleb got.
I think the only downside really, so in that regard, I think Caleb has an advantage because he's been there and done that, right? There's nothing new for him as far as game prep, as far as going into Detroit, right, and going to Ford Field or it's all he's done all that. The only legacy that you worry about are the injuries and being hit, right? And I think we saw that with Sam Darnold and how he was in the beginning of the year and then toward the end of the year, especially the Sunday night game or the Monday. I can't remember if it was Sunday or Monday night. The last game of the year against the Lions where he was just off, right? That was a culmination of being sacked 49 times during the season. Caleb was sacked over 60. So is there any lingering memory of the pressure and those things, and will it affect him fundamentally? That, I think, would be the only disadvantage, the only thing to look out for. But other than that, getting out there in the field and doing it, there's nothing more valuable in the NFL than actual game experience. And he has a lot more of that right now than JJ does.
Yeah. There's only so much you can take from OTAs, I guess, but I did read a piece with Kevin O'Connell talking about how it's kind of like a passing academy this time of year, because really you can't hit, so it's really, what can you accomplish in 7-on-7 and some team drills where there's where there's limited pass rush, limited blocking, and all that. But what have the early returns been on JJ McCarthy throughout the spring?
Arm strength has always been a question, I think, with him. I'm going to wait and see if he can throw a 10 or 12-yard comeback to the opposite from the opposite hash mark, which is a throw that Darnold could make. Jordan Addison's very good at that. So meaning if you get safety and everybody rolled toward JJ, we got one-on-ones on the other side. Can we take advantage of it? That's the kind of throw that you want to see him make. He's very good in the middle of the field, right? And that's good, but I don't think our offense is necessarily built on a short passing game attacking the middle of the field. We're too level down the field.
Yeah, with the guys you got.
Right, with the type of a passing game. So I know they make a big deal out about interceptions and all those things, but this is the time of year you should be doing that. This is the time of year you should be testing things. This is the time of year to see if you can, snake that ball in between the corner and the safeties and those kinds of things. So I think arm strength is going to be the biggest thing. He's going to be more mobile than any quarterback we've had in a while. So will we actually build that into our game plan with bootlegs and dashes and things like that, which we did not do a ton of with Darnold? We kind of kept him in the pocket. So those changes are what I'm looking for, to see if there's a way to make – when you have a young quarterback, you can flood one side of the field, the other, kind of cut the read in half, right? Give him a 3-level on one side, so it makes it a little bit more simple. Will our offense be simplified so JJ can get on, can figure it out a little bit more quickly? We'll see.
All right. Yeah, I have some more questions on that. The storylines are between these two teams I find very fascinating. So it's fun having Pete here in studio. We're going to take our first timeout of the show. Reminder, first of all, please hit that like button. Please hit subscribe. If you're watching the show right now on June 16th, you are definitely one of our diehards, whether you actually sign up to be a CHGO diehard or not. So we appreciate you grinding through the summer with us. And a reminder that you can donate this week and help out Big Brothers Big Sisters of America. So hit that like button, hit those the donation button maybe instead of a super chat today, or do both. We appreciate it. Got a lot more coming up with Pete Bercich, but first, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. New customers right now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use code CHGO365, deposit 10, place a bet for $5, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. We've been telling you about these early payout offers. Still time to get in on these. So we got a couple more hockey and basketball games, well, at least one more hockey game, maybe two, hopefully. But with hockey, the early payout offer for NHL, you're a winner if your team goes up by 3. That's happened in the last 2 games. You get an instant payout on those straight bets and parlay selections marked as winners. But basketball, your team goes up by 20, that's a winner. And in baseball, if your team goes up by 5, that's a winner. So again, breaking news from Bet365. New customers now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, use code CHGO365, deposit 10, place a bet for $5. You'll get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus if you or someone you know has a gambling problem. Crisis counseling and referral services can be accessed by calling 1-800-GAMBLER in-app only. And just like your favorite team needs a home court advantage, your home needs a home floor advantage, and Empire Today can help you get it. Empire Today is flooring experts, dedicated flooring professionals who focus on flooring every single day. And why is Empire Today your best bet for a new floor? Because they live and breathe flooring. They will be with you every step of the way. It's a whole different ball game. Pick the right flooring and the right colors in your space. So right now, schedule a free in-home estimate today, because some things are just better at home. CHGO listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code CHGO. Yep, you heard that right. A $350 discount with code CHGO. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/CHGO for full details. All right, keeping things rolling here with Pete Bercich. And, part of the reason why he's here today is obviously division rival, but the way these storylines are lining up this year, the fact that the NFL and the schedule makers decide to put these two teams on Monday Night Football in Week 1 at Soldier Field. I know I'm excited about it. And we were just talking about with JJ McCarthy. It's a homecoming too for him. A heck of a debut opportunity for the kid.
Well, I mean, we just talked about it. You're going to roll into Chicago. Kid from LaGrange is going to, how many tickets is he going to get before the game? I mean, I'm sure he's used to it from Michigan and all that. But his first exposure to the NFL, his first start, is going to be here.
Yeah.
Right? Monday night, the opening weekend, the whole entire country's watching. This is where the NFL is genius with the way that they do the schedule. Now, it's unfair. The Bengals can come around and say, yeah, it's unfair because we're playing, with kind of how it's stacked up for them the last few seasons. But they definitely know how to fabricate a story and create a story going in. And there's going to be nothing bigger than that. A kid going home, getting his first start. What's he all about? So much to watch. And we just talked about the experience in going into this first game. Caleb Williams absolutely has the advantage because he's played Monday night before, right? He's been through all of this thing. And for JJ's first experience is going to be, here we go, under the lights Monday night in Chicago. Who knows what the Bears have? A brand new offensive coordinator, brand new defensive coordinator. Dennis Allen, they may watch from some film of what he did before, but they're not going to know. Conversely, the Bears will have a little bit better idea. That's where Ben Johnson is helpful because he's seen this Vikings offense and defense, and he's performed very well against this Viking defense. I think we're 0-5 in the last 5 times we played the Lions.
Yeah.
We haven't had a lot of success playing the Lions. So pile all that stuff up in week one. Week one's different than any other. It's a huge advantage, I think, for Chicago.
Well, and so there's a long list of obvious storylines like that, but what you just sort of touched on there at the end is why I think, from a Bears perspective, this first game is going to be such a good barometer for the start of the Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams era, because look, every time the Bears have played the Vikings especially the last 2 years, whether it was Justin Fields at quarterback or Caleb Williams, what we're talking about here those weeks is you're going up against Brian Flores, those exotic fronts, trying to figure everything out pre-snap and post-snap. And here's a guy in Ben Johnson that has pretty much had the exact opposite results than the Bears have.
Yeah.
Because really, other than that sort of crazy comeback when Caleb Williams was able to go hero, which is part of his best attributes as a quarterback at Soldier Field last year. Really, you look at these matchups when the Bears have played Brian Flores, and the quarterback has struggled to understand what the hell is going on for most of the game. Right. And here's Ben Johnson, who clearly has been a thorn in the Viking side when he was with the Lions.
Yeah, and I think that goes to kind of what this offense is going to look like. And we can assume that Ben Johnson's going to want to run the same style of offense that he ran in Detroit, right? But you have to wonder and sit and realize just how different that offense was or is compared to what the Bears have been doing and what they've been seeing. And I think the number one difference is just the running game and what the Lions were able to accomplish running the football, right? You take a look at there's a stat that came out, 70-plus yard drives last year. The Lions led the league with 46 70-yard or longer touchdown drives. The Bears were tied at the bottom with Houston with, I think, 16 or 18, right? So that's a huge change. You look at the distance running backs on average could run before first contact. Jahmyr Gibbs was, if you go from worst to first, Jahmyr Gibbs was 31st. So he didn't get touched hardly at all until he got past the line of scrimmage. So just a different mentality. The way I think Jahmyr Gibbs we gave up 12 rushing touchdowns last year, and 7 of them were against Jahmyr Gibbs, right? So Gibbs in the running game is what the Lions have used year after, the last couple of years to really neutralize this defense, or our defense in our front. And my God, we just haven't been able to stop it. So can the Bears recreate that? Will it be the same type of an offense, same mentality going into game one? Because that's how Ben Johnson's had success against the Vikings in the past. Will they be able to do it now going forward?
Well, and I think
that's a big question.
Well, it is a big question, and we've talked a lot about that here in Chicago because the running back room was really the one area that got somewhat neglected in the offseason. Your draft board falls the way it does, and we know that the Bears were interested in Ashton Jeanty in the first round, Travion Henderson possibly trading up in the second round. So it's not like they weren't interested and didn't try, but you don't have total control over it. So they end up with Kyle Monangai from Rutgers in the 7th round, who's off. I think they like him, but for the most part, DeAndre Swift. It's a very different than what Ben Johnson had in Detroit. So I don't know. How would you still stay optimistic that Ben Johnson's going to be able to get something out of these running backs because he's just not going to have the same ammo that he had?
With the way his offense, with the way that offense operates, the running game is so key to it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I just don't know. It's up in the air, right? The Vikings, we run the football more because we have to. They want to throw the football. That's one of the things. We get a guy like Aaron Jones, dynamic, and get on the edge because we see the amount of too high safety because of Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. So teams kind of say, if you want to run the football, go ahead. That's not your forte, your bread and butter. So we've been be pretty efficient at it. Where that comes into play, though, is when you look at short yardage and goal line numbers and deep red zone numbers. And that's an area with the Vikings that's been a problem for the last couple of years, where we haven't been great when it's 3rd and 1, middle of the field, you have to get a yard. The Lions have been incredible at doing that. I mean, how many times have you seen it where it's they go for it on 4th down. We'll see if he's gonna carry that over, if that's just the Dan Campbell thing.
I think they will.
Or with the way you listen to him talk numbers, right? Mm-hmm. And the stats and all those things, you're kind of like, I think you're going to get a little bit more of a risky offense in that regard. But the ability to gain that 1 or 2 yards automatically running the football when the defense knows you're going to run the ball. Can the Bears replicate that with their offensive line? It's something that the Bears haven't had prior to Ben Johnson getting here, but that's something I think he's going to want to at least install that attitude with this team, and then it's just going to build from there.
Pete, you mentioned Aaron Jones. He's 30 years old now. Vikings go out, they add Jordan Mason through a trade. Do you think the Vikings have enough firepower in that backfield to back up what's effectively a rookie quarterback in JJ McCarthy?
Yeah, the great question, because as a young quarterback, your best friends are a great defense and a running game. Jordan Mason was a 1st and 2nd down type of a running back for San Francisco last year. He did a great job. He doesn't have that breakaway speed to take it to the next level. I think that's what keeps him from being one of the top running backs in the league. But as a zone runner, he's very, very good. We need him to get we need for him to get as many snaps as possible to keep snaps off Aaron Jones. We just didn't have any depth in that running back room. We've had some issues with that running back room as far as just depth goes and being able to put 2 different guys on the field. So the more snaps you take off of Jones, the better. That's Jordan Mason's job. And, hopefully with Ryan Kelly and Will Fries up front, Donovan Jackson, maybe playing some guard, we'll see if that offensive line with Christian Darrisaw coming back from a knee injury. And I say all these things to point to, I don't see the Vikings setting the world on fire in September and October. It's going to be more November and December where you got a young quarterback to kind of get things going. So I don't see the 14-win success, this year, as opposed to, they might prove us wrong, but it'll be a different season for the Vikings, and I think it's going to be a completely different season for the Bears too.
Yeah, and we've talked about that where the Vikings might not necessarily win as many games, but still be pretty damn good. Same thing for the Lions. Like, it'd be pretty hard to think they're going to win 15 games again in the regular season after losing both coordinators. But that doesn't mean they're going to all of a sudden be bad.
No. Yeah. And this is another thing. Jeff Joniak and I were chatting a few days ago, and we were talking about the schedule. And big thing for the Vikings, we're going to spend basically a week and a half in Europe, right? You play the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Your first 7 weeks are wild.
Yeah. And then, then we're playing Cleveland in London. So still for us, it's better to play at a neutral site instead of playing on the road in Pittsburgh and on the road in Cleveland. But the one thing that stood out to me looking through our schedule compared to the Bears is you take a look at the best quarterbacks that our respective outside the division are going to play this year. We play most of those guys at home. Cincinnati Bengals, we have at home. Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts, we have at home. Baltimore Ravens, at home. Commanders, at home. So you're going to go up against.
The Bears are the exact opposite of those 4 games.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So with our scheme and with Flores, we had the younger the quarterback, probably the more success that we've had in the past. But to get these veteran quarterbacks at home could be the difference, because again, I think it's just going to be a much tighter division this year than it was at least last year.
Especially your home, because they say it all the time. That stadium is insanely loud. It's a huge advantage.
And you got to use it. Now we've gotten better, but it hasn't always been the advantage at home that it should be. But I think that's a schedule nugget where you want to play the veteran, the good quarterbacks at home. At least it gives you the home field advantage of the noise and everything else. So hopefully that part of it will help. We've got a tough middle of the schedule. Once we get back from Europe, it's we've got some legit. Yet that's when you're playing Philly and Baltimore, and so we'll see how we survive through that.
Yeah, we got to take another time out here. But I read this off a few weeks ago on when I went through my scheduled nuggets across the entire league. And the Vikings, it stood out to me the fact that you start on Monday Night Football, then Sunday Night Football, Joe Burrow at home, then you go to Dublin and England in back-to-back weeks, and then you've nice little bye week in there, but it doesn't get easy after that because then you got the Eagles, and then you go West Coast Thursday night game. Yep. Just the travel and all that is crazy to me. So it calms down after that, but
if you call being at Detroit and then playing Baltimore, and then you go at Green Bay, at Seattle. Yeah. Right? That's never an easy place. I
don't like how you skip the Bears game in there, but okay.
You don't see again, this is in hindsight being 2020, we don't see any relief until we're into December and you're playing at maybe Dallas and at the Giants, right?
Yeah.
And who knows if those teams have seasons like they did last year. At least our road games match up a little bit better for us than the Bears do.
All right, well, there were some interesting parallels, especially I thought on the offensive line and defensive line this offseason between these two teams. They're addressing a lot of the same positions. We'll get into that next, but first, we are headed to Las Vegas with True Fan Travel. We had 2 awesome trips with True Fan Travel. Last year, went to London, went to Arizona. If you missed those, you probably heard about how great they are. Come to Vegas. It's going to be great. CHGO is taking over the Strip for an epic weekend in Vegas. You're invited. Join us as the Bears take on the Raiders September 25th. It's an all-inclusive trip that includes a 3-night stay at a premium Vegas resort, tickets to the game, VIP parties, unforgettable events with the CHGO's crew and fellow fans, much more. So don't gamble on missing the ultimate fan experience. Book your spot now at truefantravel.com. It's going to be a great weekend. The weather's going to be awesome. True Fan, we're going to Vegas. Come with us. And if you're like me, you want to budget for your vacations, you want to set some money aside for stuff like that if you want to come to Vegas, well, I got another recommendation for you. Use Monarch Money. This is what I use because finances can be messy and confusing, and Monarch Money acts like your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control so you can stop earning and start growing. Don't just manage your money. Start building your wealth with 50% off your first year for our listeners here at CHGO. If you get in there in the app, you see you can categorize every single expense. Everything I just spent over the weekend gets put in, some category, and I know exactly what I'm spending on what every single month, what my wife's spending, what's going towards the kids, all of this. So super helpful. So start managing your finances to build the life you actually want. Monarch makes managing money simple, even for busy lives. So get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use code CHGO at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code CHGO. All right, appreciate everybody watching and listening today. A reminder that if you're watching on YouTube, you can hit that donate button, help us raise some money for Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America, and 100% of those donations are going towards Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America, with YouTube covering all the transaction fees. It's part of Spirit Week. Tomorrow, we got a mystery guest day, which will literally be a mystery because as of right now, I have no idea who it's going to be. And then Wednesday, we're going to do some musical chairs. I'm actually going to be on the Blackhawk show that day, which I'm excited about, especially because we got Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final on Tuesday night, so we'll be able to react to that. I'll get to be Hockey Hoge for a day over on the Hawk show. And then we got some, we're going to go all in on Big Brothers, Big Sisters on Thursday and a special Die Hard day for you on Friday. So it's a fun week here across the ALLCITY network, not just here at CHGO, but across all of our networks at ALLCITY. And we're all trying to raise some money this week. I think the goal is $10,000 for Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America. So please help us out by hitting that donate button. There's also, it's like a handshake logo right by the chat. And if you donate, you have the option, your donation can come up in the chat. We'll throw it up here on the screen. Of course, if you want to remain anonymous, you can do that too. But there's that option for you. All right. As we continue to roll on here with Pete Bercich, and I want to talk about let's start with the offensive lines of these two teams, because both teams are in a very similar spot where they're winning in this offseason. We're like, we got to remake the interior of the offensive line. It's been a huge story for the Bears, but perhaps just as big of a story for the Vikings in Minnesota. And it was interesting how these two teams went about it. Center, Bears went all in on Drew Dahlman, paid the big money. Vikings ended up paying a little bit less for Ryan Kelly, who's more veteran, been around for a long time.
Where's that big neck roll?
Yeah.
He's old school.
Yeah, he is old school.
Can't miss him.
He's played with like 18 different quarterbacks with the rotation going on there in Indianapolis where he came from. And then at right guard, they also bring Will Fries over from Indy. Bears made their trade for Jonah Jackson, and then the left guard situation very different in terms of what the Bears and Vikings did, because the Bears went out and got Joe Thuney, who, if he puts together a few more great seasons, probably is headed to Canton in the Hall of Fame. And then the Vikings ended up drafting Donovan Jackson in the first round using high draft capital on Donovan Jackson. So what do you think about the two approaches from these two teams and how they've rebuilt the interior of their lines? And
you take a look, just look at the NFC North, because Green Bay replaced one of their guards. Mm-hmm. I know that for sure. We're going to have probably one, if not two new ones. You guys have two new ones. And then Detroit with Ragnow retiring, which that was you talk about a weird thing. Ragnall's a Minnesota kid, so we're familiar with him. Starts his career at guard, does okay, and then they move him to center, and he's been Pro Bowl caliber center. But the timing of his retirement, when the team really, what are they going to do? What's their plan? So that'll be interesting. But defensive line as well. Grady Jackson being brought in. We bring in Jonathan Allen and.
And Hargrave too, right?
Javon Hargrave. So the trenches have been built up, right? And we talked about earlier what Ben Johnson's going to want to do with his offense. I think he can get that done with this offensive line that you guys have. It's going to look a lot more like that kind of football. So the quality of the guys in the trenches in this division really, really went up. And it, again, that's why I keep saying I think you still might get 3 playoff teams from the NFC North this year. It's going to be outside of Philadelphia, maybe. Still the best division in football overall. It's just I just don't see 2 teams walking away with more than 13, 14 wins.
Yeah, and it'll probably never be the true black and blue division that it used to be. But when you look at
black and blue as this game can be in this day and age,
exactly. I mean, I just looking at all 4 teams, I'd say the only team that I'd probably be looking at like they might have a significant weakness is what the Packers still have going on their defensive line. But otherwise, their offensive line's pretty good too. Obviously, Detroit's got things figured out. They're going to get Aiden Hutchinson back on their D-line.
Yep.
So it's just this is going to be fun, especially when these teams go up against each other this year when you were just watching the trenches.
Yeah, it definitely is. And Green Bay's their future depends a lot on their quarterback. They fielded the youngest offense for the last 2 seasons in a row. So that's got to start to pay off for them, right? The receiving core, quarterback, the entire offensive line. Whether or not that's going to come to fruition, we'll see. I think for the Green Bay, they had good depth, meaning the difference in their D line. I'm talking about the difference between their number 1 D lineman and their number 8 D lineman. They're pretty close, right? But they need to start seeing a little bit more, I think, out of their linebacker position. And definitely their safety cornerback type position. I don't study the Packers. I hate them, so I don't really pay much. I try to pay as little attention to what they're doing.
It's hard to even watch their film. It's just ugly colors.
So I just kind of, all right, you'll be 3rd and whatever in the division. But yeah, well, it's going to be interesting also to see if the Lions can continue the success they've had with losing both their coordinators.
I was going to ask you that. It was on my list of questions for you. Just how it's kind of an obvious question, but how big of an impact that is, because if Ben Johnson's everything that we're trying to talk him up to being here in Chicago, that's what they lost in Detroit.
Well, and again, when you look at offensive coordinators, you have to look at how long have they sustained their success. And that's one thing with Detroit, with Ben Johnson, is that he's been there at least for the last 3 seasons and had a lot of success offensively. And so when you do, defenses make changes. They start to do things. Can you sustain that? And he has, right? So that's the difference between an A-tier level type offensive coordinator and a guy who was a 1-year, one-hit wonder and then tries to take that system to another team and jam a bunch of square pegs in a round hole. So he's had to evolve. Ben Johnson's had to evolve. He's had to figure out what's next. And I think that's a huge advantage and a much more likely indicator that he'll be able to sustain the success offensively coming here to Chicago. So
defensively for that team, though, for the Lions, it's interesting because I understand why the Jets hired Aaron Glenn as a head coach, kind of a leader of men type of approach at that spot, but it's not like that Lions defense was all world. So
no,
you almost wonder if they might actually get better defensively. With the coordinator change.
I think that defense benefited from a couple things. Number one is that offense stayed on the field. We already talked about the number of prolonged drives that the Lions offense had. So the defense wasn't necessarily out there for 60% of the game, right? The other side of it is how aggressive you watch the Lions defense on film, and depending on the referee crew, the way they were taught to grab and how they grab and how they trail the hip and it's sneaky. It's what they do. They're that aggressive. I mean, they're not just aggressive in the way that they blitz and the way that they leave guys one-on-one, but how they play the position physically especially at cornerback and safety is a huge part of what they did. Can they sustain that? Right. And that, you take a look, Kelvin Shepard was promoted. He's been around for 5 years. He was a linebacker coach. Now he's defense coordinator. Will he be able to kind of keep that ball rolling? I think the bigger question is John Morton on the offensive side, to see if he can continue. So how much is Dan Campbell,
right,
a manufacturer of this system, right? And can they continue it on the offensive side? So a lot more question marks, I think, in Detroit in that regard. And they lost a lot, but that's what happens with success. They kept Campbell around, but man, you need to continue to bring in great coordinators.
All right, so I know you like talking about the Bears, so I want to fire off some more Bears questions
Sure.
for you here before we get out of here. What did you think about them drafting Colson Loveland in the first round?
One thing about a Ben Johnson offense is the slot receiver is extremely important, especially when they get the run game going and then you have the play action game going. The second thing about a Ben Johnson offense is it's all about yards after contact, and that's not just on the ground but as wide receivers as well. You'll see balls thrown way down the field, but a lot of what their offense is predicated on is finding the one-on-one, getting the receiver the football in stride, on time, breaking a tackle, and getting another 10, 15, 20 yards after the play. So when you bring in you draft a guy like Colston Loveland, you can kind of maybe envision what the Giants did years ago with Jeremy Shockey, where as a and this is back when I was coaching, as a defensive staff, you had to say, are we going to put, when they come out with two tight ends, are they going to run their three wide offense, or are they going to run the football? Because that's two entirely different personnel groups on defense.
Right.
And it gives them the opportunity, if they can handle it, and say, all right, well, depending on who the defense trots out on the field, we can walk out Loveland. He's a wide receiver in the slot. Basically, he has that talent set. He's going to be out there against the linebacker. He's going to be out there against the safety instead of a nickel. That's a mismatch. Get him the ball quickly. Let him run. Let him run after catch. Again, sustained drives, right? Moving, and not all the big explosive plays, but 70-yard drives, 50-yard drives, that mentality. So I think outside, I thought you guys were going to draft a running back because, again, that's the running game is so important to the Lions and how they are. But I see how Colston Loveland fits in what they're trying to do offensively. You can put him at tight end and go three wide and put someone else in the slot as well. But that slot receiver position is going to be huge, I think, this year.
Which they addressed with Luther Burden, too. So when you think about everything that you just said with how the tight end affects that, so they draft the tight end, Colston Loveland, then they go Luther Burden, which was a surprise to all of us, but I think it was a surprise to them, too, because they just really liked him and didn't think he'd still be available there. And so they truly drafted who they viewed best player available there.
And then a gigantic left tackle.
Yeah.
Who's going to do what? Run the ball.
And so far, the early returns on Ozzie Trapillo have been
he's a monster.
Pretty good.
He's 6'8".
Yeah, he's massive. I mean,
you can't coach big, right?
No,
can't coach big.
So
you look at those 3 draft picks, and you're like, okay, you guys are going to run the ball and throw it to the slot. Find the mismatches. Here we go.
Steven, did you want to – this is a good way to go to the wide receivers. Did you want to ask that wide receiver question you had for him?
Yeah, I mean, I look at the 2 wide receiver rooms right now. So the Vikings, they obviously have Justin Jefferson, arguably the best in the game. They have Jordan Addison, who's got 20 total TDs in his first 2 years. They're too deep there. That's just 2 guys. Now you look at the Bears, they have DJ Moore, they have Rome Odunze, and now they draft Luther Burden. How do those 2 rooms compare? Would you rather be the Vikings with 2 just top-tier guys, or the Bears that are a little bit deeper with 3 plus some auxiliary pieces?
I guess here's how I would answer that. With Kevin O'Connell's offense, absolutely you would go with JJ and Addison. I'm a huge Jordan Addison fan, right? When we drafted him, I was like, hey, he's undersized, that kind of unbelievably good route runner. That's why he's so good in the red zone. And he gets a lot more in the way of one-on-ones because of the attention that Justin Jefferson gets. And our offense is predicated on those 2 guys being able to get downfield, right, to stretch the field vertically. We drafted a guy named Ty Felton out of Maryland, had 9 touchdowns last year, 8 of which were in the red zone. So he's fast, but a good route runner. I think it's just about the system, really, with this whole with both these groups, right? I think Odunze would have a lot of success in the Viking system as well, but that's all going to change now because it's the one thing kind of Detroit. Did Detroit really have an an unbelievably headline-grabbing name group in the wide receiver room? Not really.
No.
Right?
I mean, it's Amon-Ra, and then...
Yeah, I mean, Amon-Ra was the guy, and then was it Jamison Williams?
Yeah.
The speed.
Yep.
And when teams fell asleep on Jamison Williams, did they throw it deep? Absolutely they did. So, again, I think that slot receiver position for the Bears is going to be key. It's going to be huge. And then with our system, I love the group that we have, and we'll see how our group pans out.
Yeah, to answer your question, Stephen, if I can, I'd rather have Justin Jefferson. I'd rather have the guy who's the best in the entire league. But I do like the Bears room.
And to JJ's credit, I mean, he came out through all the OTAs and all this offseason stuff because he wants to work with a new quarterback, and he hasn't gotten into full. He's not getting into that full prima donna mode, right? Type thing. He's been a great leader, and that's kind of his legacy now. The numbers are great, but he needs to get a Super Bowl ring or two if he wants to be in the conversation as one of the best all time. And I think that's what's on the table for JJ. But he's definitely working for it.
So with that in mind, what do you think are realistic expectations for the Vikings this year? Because I know it's tough because we don't have to get into the Minnesota history when it comes to the playoffs and things like that. But it always seems like even when there's really good years, it ends in a tough way.
But I'm glad you brought that up because I think 3 seasons ago, or 3 seasons ago, excuse me. I think we had a 13-win season. Then we kind of came down to earth last year or 2 years ago with Cousins being injured, and then last year with the 14 wins. And losing that momentum toward the end of the year. So it's kind of like, all right, well, we got this regular season thing kind of figured out, but it's a whole nother season at the end of the year. And for the Vikings, regular season, just get into the playoffs. It's unbelievably difficult to be the number 1 seed and to get that, get the bye and get the whole thing. It's very, very tough to do. With a inexperienced quarterback, is that going to be possible? I doubt it. I highly doubt, unless you play a bunch of teams at the right time. Play the Eagles the week Jalen Hurts is out, right? Or you're playing Burrow gets hurt when you're playing Cincinnati. Those things can't happen. To me, it's postseason success is what the Vikings need. First, they got to get there. Not an easy thing to do, right? But you got to have some success in the postseason, and definitely last year we were heading in the wrong direction. That game in Detroit, that was on our quarterback fairly. He'd been hit all year. He had a couple chances. You don't have to be way off. It looks way off on TV, but you're off by this much. You're missing wide receivers, and that could have been it should have been a much closer game. But then to just bury all that when you're playing a Rams team that has to relocate because of fires, that whole mess. Right, so we basically played that game in a neutral site, and it wasn't close. So definitely fell off the table toward the end of the year. That's what the next step is for at least for this Vikings franchise. I know that. For you guys, I know it's just getting there. Yeah. Right, getting there and knowing what it's like to get there, and the what it's like to be in the playoffs and the prep and how the game changes and all those things. So getting there is not enough anymore for us.
Yeah, and I would agree with you with that on the Bears. Like right now, how I look at this in June is if they can make the playoffs, winning a playoff game would be a bonus.
You can make the playoffs in this division.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's again, this division just got a heck of a lot more, I think, competitive. How much will the Lions fall off? We'll see. How much better will the Bears be? I think it's going to be noticeable. You guys, I think, especially offensively, are definitely going to notice a difference in what you're going to do this year as opposed to last year. And then there's Green Bay, which, hopefully I would trade a postseason appearance, I think, for this year for the Bears to finish last in the division.
For the Packers?
The Packers to finish last in the division. Well, I think I would.
You might not have to. It might happen. Vikings might make the playoffs.
I'm just saying. I'd be willing to give that up.
It's interesting. I always like to sample, whether I'm reading or listening to sports radio or whatever, in the other especially the NFC North markets. I was listening to stuff in Wisconsin last week, and I mean, I don't think Matt LaFleur's on the hot seat yet, but having been through this many times in Chicago, it's like the year before the hot seat, or it's if things start to go terribly wrong, you could just tell they're starting to get a little fed up with really just not having any postseason success at this point, and they want more.
I think the question is the development of Jordan Love.
Yeah.
And if I don't think we saw a huge step last season for him. Mm-hmm. Is that going to continue? The more he plateaus, and the more there's an issue, at least with the quarterback position, the more Matt LaFleur is going to be on the hot seat. In my opinion, right? That offense needs to get to that next level. I've said it earlier. They're the youngest offense in the league. It's got to start paying some dividends. All this experience for these young players, if it doesn't start paying dividends, then LaFleur might be on the hot seat. But then again, Green Bay's it's a little bit different up there, and I don't know.
Well, they're so used to having Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Yeah, I heard someone make the point the other day that, if you were to reverse the two Jordan Love seasons, if he had last year's season first and then follow that up with his first season, everybody would be talking about him being an MVP candidate this year. And I go, well, that's a great spin, except for that's not what actually happened. The league adjusted to him, or he just had a sophomore slump, whatever it is. C.J. Stroud went through that last year too in Houston. And so that's leading to legitimate questions about how he adjusts back. He's going to adjust back to what happened last year. You can't just reverse engineer all this stuff in the NFL.
No, man. Again, another very compelling storyline for this NFC North. I mean, it's good to be part of a division that is going to be this competitive. It should be this competitive. Who knows what's going to happen? But, these NFC North games are going to be awesome to watch.
So this pops in my head as we get set to wrap up here. Just a couple more questions. But when you were talking about the end of the Viking season, it was interesting to me that the Lions ended up being the ones proposing a rule to get to reseed everything just based on record and not have division winners be guaranteed a home game. Yeah. Which obviously would have benefited the Vikings with their 14 wins last year. And instead, because you lost that game in Detroit in Week 18, you had to go play the Rams on the road, which turned out to be in Arizona because of the fires and all that. What did you think about all that? I don't like it. I like the way it is, but I might be a little old school on
If you want a home playoff game, win your division.
Yeah.
Period. That's what you have to do. If you don't win your division, you don't deserve a home playoff game. And I say that because it's important. The NFL, I think a couple things. The NFL and technology. I mean, when I got into this league, they were still doing rookie cards, literal, rookie cards. And you look at now with how fantasy football's technology, and the NFL has embraced technology, HD TV, the camera angles, the replays, all those things. It makes it one of the only, and I try to go to every professional sport that's out there, from Premier League soccer to NASCAR to hockey, the whole thing. I would much rather go to an NHL game in the stadium and watch it than I would watching it on TV. Not even close, right?
It's the
best. You could say that for baseball too, I think. Like Premier League soccer, I was able to go to Arsenal a few years back and see them play Tottenham Hotspur on Derby Day, which to me, I was like, what the hell is Derby Day? That atmosphere was insane.
Yeah. The
NFL is the only sport where it's almost as good, if not better, at home watching it on TV than it is to be there. So the NFL has played all the technology, I think, the right way. But having a division winner get a home game, so if the NFC West has a rough year like they did last year, at least they're going to have one game out that way. And it's going to keep interest all throughout the country.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is my point in saying I like it the way it is. Keep it that way. What has changed is the bye week. I don't know if it's a huge advantage anymore like it used to be. Back in the day, it used to be get a week off, get some rest, you come back. You rarely saw a team with a bye lose that first game in the playoffs. Now that's changed a little bit, but I really think they need to stay with you want to play at home in the playoffs, win your division.
And also, as a non-Vikings, non-Lions fan, I loved that game mattered as much as it did in Week 18.
Yeah.
Like, I loved that there was we just looking at it from the outside, I'm sure you guys were talking about it going into that game too. I felt like the loser of that game might very well lose very quickly in the playoffs. Now, it turned out they both did.
Yeah, well.
So I like that much was on the line.
It just goes to the evolution, I think, in the maturity of a player in this. When you're a young player, you want to just make sure you play well enough to keep your job, your job. Once you've mastered that, then it's like, okay, we want to have some team success. Then the team has some success. But you could talk to any of the veterans with Minnesota. They're sitting there going, we've won some, we've been some regular season dynamos, but we haven't done a damn thing in the postseason. And 20 years from now, 10 years from now, it's all people care about, right? Your legacy is going to be, you're a good quarterback, but you didn't do anything in the playoffs. That's where legends are made, right? Yeah. That's I think what the dream that JJ McCarthy brings to Minnesota fans is his success at the college level. Can he bring that and make that happen in the NFL level? We'll see. But there are a lot of really good football players that never had the chance to hoist the Lombardi or had, prolonged success in the playoffs. And I think that's what really, really matters. And you can win 14 games, but it's like you get to game 17, like you're talking about, doesn't matter. It's all about this one game. Yep. 14 games, fine. That puts you in a position to play for this game. So you have to forget all of that, right? You have to put that behind you and say, okay, what's important now? Well, what's important now is beating the best team at the time in the NFL in Detroit.
Well, we need to wrap things up here on today's edition of CHGO Bears. Greatly appreciate Pete Bercich being here. Do we have any super chats?
We don't have super chats, but we do have some donations.
Okay.
They didn't pop up on the chat, but I have all the names right here. 2 different people donated $20 anonymously. Outspoken Inc. donated $5. And then our big donor of the day is Gary Lavario, who donated $100 to Big Brothers and Big Sisters of America.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gary. Thank you to everybody who donated. Greatly appreciate that. We'll continue. Remember, that's all week we're going to be doing that. So, and it's on all of our shows, too. So make sure you're checking out all of our shows the entire week, especially today. And don't forget, because it is wear your favorite CHGO t-shirt day, 30% off in our store right now, allchgo.com. You can find the link to the store there. And good day to buy some merch as well. Thank you for everybody donating. Pete, thanks for coming. I always love talking football with you.
Had a great time. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you battling traffic and getting in here.
Well, I mean, come on, you get to talk football.
Yeah.
It's the best thing ever.
It's the best. That's why we do it
Very
year round. No breaks here on
CHGO,
show, even though I am taking a break here in a couple weeks. And Braggs is taking a break now, and Carm's doing whatever he's doing wherever he is right now, which leads me to promoting tomorrow's show. It's a mystery guest day here across our network. I have no idea who's joining us on tomorrow's show, and I'm not sure if that's stressing me out or making me excited. Probably a little bit of both, but hopefully you'll tune in, and as I will be here in person, figuring out who the hell's joining us on tomorrow's show. It should be fun. Thank you for watching, listening. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe. Donations accepted all week long, going to Big Brothers, Big Sisters of America. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you tomorrow at noon.
We all silly like the mayor.